The lights of the arena blaze bright, casting long shadows across the ring. Charlotte Flair, standing tall in her signature robe, lavishly embroidered with golden details, takes in the roar of the crowd. She's the queen of the wrestling world, born into greatness, expected to uphold a legacy that reaches back generations. Her eyes scan the audience, but behind the confidence, there's something darker that lingers. A deep breath. This is more than just a match. It's a battle against herself, against expectations, and against the cost of living up to the Flair name. Charlotte, softly, to herself, they don't get it. None of them do. She looks down at the ring, her thoughts clouded with doubts that have long been buried beneath layers of success. Despite the years of domination, the accolades, the championship wins, she is still haunted by something deeper, something she can't escape. Pause as Charlotte takes a deep breath. Stepping forward into the ring, the spotlight shines on her. But in her mind, it's always been a stage where perfection is demanded, where every loss feels like a failure, and every victory a reminder that the price of being a Flair is higher than anyone can understand. This is not just about wrestling. This is about survival. In the ring, you fight to win. But in the world of the Flairs, it's not just the titles that define you. It's the battles you face outside the ropes. Scene transitions to a dark, quiet hallway backstage. The sounds of the crowd muffled as Charlotte walks alone. Her robe still drapes over her shoulders. But she's no longer the queen of the ring. She's just a woman trying to breathe in the silence. Flashbacks begin to unfold, showing glimpses of Charlotte's childhood, her father, the legendary Ric Flair, towering over her in the gym, showing her the ropes. At first, it's encouraging. He's teaching her, pushing her to be the best. The camera zooms in on her younger face, vulnerable, unsure. Ric Flair from the flashback, stern yet supportive. You're a Flair. Charlotte, you're destined for greatness. There's no room for weakness. Do you understand me? The scene cuts back to Charlotte in the present, her expression hardening as she pushes open the door to her dressing room. She gazes at her reflection in the mirror, her eyes tired, heavy, as if the years of living up to that legacy are taking their toll. Charlotte quietly, almost to herself, I never had a choice. Did I? Her fingers touch the edge of the mirror, the cold surface offering no comfort. She thinks back to the relentless training, the expectations that shaped her, and the burden of being the daughter of one of the most celebrated wrestlers in history. There was never a moment where she wasn't preparing to fight, to perform, to live up to a name that meant power, dominance, and unwavering success. But what about the moments where she just wanted to be? Charlotte? Another flashback. Charlotte as a teenager, sitting at the dinner table with her father. He's busy talking about his own career, his own accolades. She's silent, looking down at her plate. A brief exchange that speaks volumes. Ric Flair, why are you always so quiet? Charlotte, you're the future. Don't forget it. Charlotte, softly, to herself, am I, though, or am I just the next in line to carry the weight? Back to the present. Charlotte sits in front of a mirror, removing her makeup, her fingers trembling slightly. She runs a hand through her hair, staring at the person in the reflection. Who is she when the robe is off? When the lights are dimmed, the arena's roar fades into the quiet. Charlotte, whispering, I don't know if I'm strong enough anymore. The weight of her thoughts drapes over her like a shadow, her posture slumped. A stark contrast to the fierce champion the world sees. The scene transitions to the bustling backstage area before a major match. Charlotte stands with her back to the wall, her robe now replaced with her wrestling gear, tight black tights, knee-high boots, and a striking, regal crown on her head. The hum of anticipation fills the air as her opponent. Tiffany Adams, a younger up-and-coming star, prepares for her match. The tension is palpable, not only between the two women but also within Charlotte, as if something deep inside her is pulling in two directions. Her mind races. Tiffany off-screen, joking, Charlotte, I've always looked up to you. I hope I can be half the woman you are one day. Charlotte glances over, a tight smile forming on her lips, though it doesn't reach her eyes. Charlotte smiling, but her voice is cold. You think you want this? Think you want to wear this crown? Tiffany, unaware of the depth of Charlotte's struggle, laughs. Tiffany, absolutely. Who wouldn't want to be as great as you? Charlotte's expression falters for a moment, her eyes flicking downward as the memories flood her. Her father's voice, his cold stare, his relentless expectations. She closes her eyes, briefly, trying to shake it off. The camera zooms in on her clenched jaw, the emotional tension of the moment building. Charlotte, under her breath, to herself, I never asked for this. I never asked to be perfect. The scene cuts to the entrance tunnel, where the noise from the crowd intensifies. The lights flash. Charlotte takes a deep breath, trying to steady herself. The moment is approaching. She knows that once she steps through that curtain, she must be the queen. She must dominate. There's no other option. The bell rings as Charlotte steps out into the spotlight, the arena erupting in cheers. Her eyes are hard, focused, but there's a flicker of doubt behind them. She's not just facing Tiffany tonight. She's facing the expectation, the pressure, the history that she carries with her every time she steps into the ring. The match begins. Tiffany comes out strong, quick, and aggressive. Charlotte moves to counter, her years of experience showing. But as the fight progresses, something inside Charlotte begins to crack. She feels the weight of her legacy, the endless comparisons to her father, the constant battle to remain the best. She's not fighting Tiffany anymore. She's fighting herself. Charlotte catches Tiffany in a suplex, but instead of the swift, precise execution that's usual for her, there's a slight hesitation, a misstep. The crowd murmurs. Tiffany seizes the moment, delivering a devastating kick to Charlotte's midsection. Tiffany mocking, taunting as she presses the advantage. You're slipping. Charlotte, are you ready to let go of that crown? Charlotte staggers, pain searing through her abdomen, but the words hit deeper than any physical blow. For the first time, she questions if she really is ready to give it all up. Charlotte, voice shaky, but defiant. No, I won't. I can't. The crowd roars as Charlotte, despite her doubts, channels her inner strength. She rises, fury and clarity in her eyes. In a sudden burst of energy, she performs a flawless figure-8 leg lock on Tiffany. The hold is locked in tight. Tiffany struggles, but it's clear Charlotte has regained control. The crowd is on their feet, but Charlotte's eyes are far away, her body going through the motions, her mind a battleground. Tiffany, screaming in pain, gasping, let me go. This isn't you. Charlotte, you don't have to be perfect. Charlotte pauses. The words cut through the fog in her mind. She looks at Tiffany's face. The desperation and the realization hits her. She doesn't have to be perfect. She can be human. Charlotte hesitates, her grip on the hold loosening slightly. A beat of silence. Then, with a swift motion, she tightens it again, forcing Tiffany to tap out. The bell rings. Announcer booming. Winner, Charlotte Flair. The crowd erupts into applause. Charlotte stands in the ring, breathing heavily, her heart pounding. But there's something different in her now. As the referee raises her hand, she looks down at Tiffany, not with triumph, but with something new, a deeper understanding. The weight of her legacy is still there. But for the first time, she's no longer holding it in isolation. The camera zooms in on Charlotte's face. There's no more stone-cold facade. For the first time, she smiles genuinely. The queen has faced her inner demons, and though the battle is far from over, tonight, she finally made peace with herself. The scene transitions to the locker room. The door creaks open as Charlotte walks in, still feeling the adrenaline from the match. The sound of the crowd fades away, leaving only the silence of the room. She pulls her robe off, revealing the rawness of her body, bruises and scrapes from the match. But more than that, the weight of what she's carried for so long. She stares at her reflection, the woman who fought not just for a title, but for acceptance. Her face is softer now, less guarded. There's a quietness to her, like she's beginning to process the journey she's been on. She runs her fingers through her damp hair, taking a long, steady breath. Her expression is not one of triumph, but of clarity. For the first time in years, she isn't just a champion. She's Charlotte, flawed, vulnerable, and finally free. Charlotte sits down on the bench, exhausted. Her hands tremble slightly as she untangles her knee pads, the weight of the match still heavy in her limbs. As she removes her boots, her mind drifts back to the fight with Tiffany. The words Tiffany had said still echo in her mind. Tiffany in a flashback. You don't have to be perfect. Charlotte exhales deeply, closing her eyes. She looks down at her championship belt resting on the bench beside her, a symbol of her legacy, a symbol of pressure. But in this moment, she sees it differently. It's not just a piece of gold. It's a part of her journey, one that has been hard-earned, but also one that no longer defines her. Charlotte, softly, to herself, I don't have to be perfect. The door to the locker room creaks open again. Jason, an older veteran wrestler, walks in with a grin on his face, clearly aware of what's just happened. Jason, I saw the match. You did good, but don't get too comfortable. Kid, Charlotte looks up, offering him a small smile, grateful, but not looking for validation anymore. She's finally at peace with her own fight. Charlotte, I don't need to be perfect anymore. I just need to be me. Jason's grin softens. He nods approvingly. Jason, that's the most important win. Kid, you'll go far. Charlotte nods, looking back at the belt, then at herself in the mirror. The weight is still there, but it feels different now. It's lighter, not because she's won, but because she's finally embraced who she is beyond the ring. The pressure doesn't own her anymore. The camera pulls back, showing Charlotte standing up and walking toward the door of the locker room. She pauses for a moment, looking back one last time at her reflection. Charlotte, to herself, with a soft smile, maybe this is what winning really feels like. She opens the door and steps out into the hallway, walking down the quiet corridor with a new sense of calm. The scene ends with her silhouette fading into the distance, leaving behind the echo of the crowd, and embracing a new journey, a journey that's not defined by the expectations of others, but by her own understanding of what it means to be Charlotte Flair. The scene opens with Charlotte walking through the backstage area, her footsteps slow but deliberate. The arena is still loud with the cheers of the crowd, but it feels distant now. Her robe is once again draped over her shoulders, but there's a noticeable difference in her posture. The weight that once burdened her is lifted, replaced with a quiet strength that comes from acceptance. As she walks, her reflection in the glass windows shows not just a champion, but the woman who has come to terms with her journey. The camera follows her, focusing on the way she moves now, confident, sure of herself, but also at peace. She passes a group of younger wrestlers who look up to her. Whispering excitedly, Charlotte stops for a moment, giving them a subtle nod. Her expression soft, yet knowing. The respect is there. But there's something more in her eyes, a glimpse of the wisdom that only comes with truly understanding who you are. As she reaches the exit door, she pauses. The noise of the crowd is a constant hum in the background, but Charlotte stands in the doorway for a moment, just looking out. The city lights stretch far ahead, the world beyond the arena filled with endless possibilities. She breathes in deeply, the cool air filling her lungs. Charlotte to herself, with a quiet realization, I'm more than just a queen of the ring. I'm me, and that's enough. A brief smile flickers on her face, the first truly free smile we've seen from her. She steps out into the night, the door closing softly behind her. As she walks into the distance, the camera lingers for a moment, capturing the peaceful look on her face. In the ring, you fight to win, but sometimes the hardest battle is learning to win with yourself. The camera pulls back one final time, fading into the quiet night, leaving Charlotte to walk towards her future, no longer bound by the expectations of others. The screen fades to black,